Today we're joined by Pastor Jonathan Evans on The Difference set to discuss how the family is the foundation for society. Later, Jonathan shares a message from the pulpit right here at Cornerstone Church. You're watching The Difference, and it starts right now. Hello and welcome to The Difference. Today, Kendal and I are so excited to have a very dear friend on set with us. He's a former NFL professional football player, the son of Pastor Dr. Tony Evans. Also, he's a husband, a father, and he's taking on the mantle of ministry himself. Jonathan Evans, welcome to The Difference. Welcome. It is an honor to have you.
So glad to have you.
It's been a long time coming, but we got you on the couch.
That's right. You got me. I'm excited.
You know, people are very familiar with the Evans family.
Yeah.
You've got your, siblings involved in so many aspects of ministry. There's music ministry and art and drama and movies, and then there's the church there at Oak Cliff. But tell our audience about Jonathan Evans. Who are you in this mix of the Evans household?
Well, I'm the baby of the family, so that makes...
You're the favorite.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'm in the best position in the house. Parents were sleepy, tired, didn't care what I did when I came through. My siblings were jealous for a while, but they got over it. No, but we just have a great relationship, and then, my parents were always really excited about whoever God wanted us to be. And so it was exciting because for me, I wanted to be the NFL guy. I wanted to play sports, those things. And God really just, transformed that and used that. For now I can be the chaplain of the Cowboys, and now I can be the chaplain of the Mavericks.
That's got to be spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
You're waging war for a win. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
We got to get out of the first round.
When
of
they
the
win,
playoffs.
I preached a good sermon. When they lose, it's my fault. I didn't pray enough. All of that. But God is able, He was able to use my experience to turn that over to where I can really have fun in ministry, but also helping my dad. And I'm married with 5 kids.
5?
Yeah.
5 kids. And
One more than us.
Their ages, your children's
13
ages?
to 3. So I have a 13, 11, let me stick with it here. 13, 11, 8, 6, and 3.
Wow. The thing about family, and it's something that is the greatest blessing and one of the biggest burdens that you'll ever carry.
That's right.
Because you're so heart, soul, mind, and body into it. But you mentioned something about your parents that they wanted you to be whatever God wanted you to be.
That's right.
And I think that's an important message for people to hear, because oftentimes we have our own preconceived notions about what we see in our children or what we expect of our children.
That's right.
Not really giving God permission to be who He said He would be. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you.
That's right.
And having grown up in a house like that, how liberating was it for you to discover God's plan for your life?
Huge, because a lot of people would ask me, what is it like to be the son of Dr. Tony and Lois Evans? And they're automatically thinking that you have to be in ministry, you have to preach, you have to do these things. And it wasn't like that at all. My parents were very intentional about being intentional about letting God do what He's going to do in our lives and finding our way. And so I just thought that that's something that I wanted to carry on, because each kid, is different. They come out different.
Oh, well,
you try to put them in the,
You've got 5, we've got 4, and I mean, Kendal and I'll be like, how could they come from the same parents? But just, I mean,
I know.
You look at them, you're like, those 2 are going to be tight for the rest of their life. These 2, I hope they figure it out.
Exactly. But I think that's the great thing about God is all the puzzle pieces. He knows exactly how they fit, and they don't look the same. And so my parents were good at that, and I'm trying to do that too. It's hard not to,
kind of steer them in the direction that you think they should
and you
go.
have to do that to some degree. I mean, you got to parent them and create those boundaries so they can really express freedom. But at the same time, you want to see what God's going to do in their life.
Yeah.
How do you balance your family, 5 kids, husband and wife relationship, trying to get all that with the church? Now you are the lead pastor with your father, right?
Yep. So we're working together. It's always a hard balance. Young children, young in ministry, it's always a hard balance. But what I'm learning is that the best yes is no.
I like that. The best
Say that again.
yes is no.
The best yes is no. Because if I say yes to everything, I'm saying no to the most meaningful thing. So I have to learn that opportunities come and go. But your family, that's the most important ministry that God has given me. And so I've learned that my best yes is going to be a no. And I have to do less to do more. And so that's what I'm learning to understand in ministry, and just prioritizing things in the right order. You just have to do it.
You have to be very intentional about that priority. Super. And, my nature is that if somebody asks, I feel an obligation.
Yep.
It's just who I am. So it's like, how may I help you?
The pastor's heart.
And in learning the no is something that people have to be very intentional about based on what God has called you to do. It's kind of that Nehemiah moment, if you would, where, distractions show up and say, hey, Nehemiah, can you come down here and speak with us? He says, no, I'm sorry, I'm building a wall. And I got a sword in the other hand. So, unless you're here to build or fight, I ain't got anything for you.
Practically, I just had to, we got a lot in common.
Absolutely.
Our dads are monsters in ministry, you know what I mean?
We both have a real advantage and a privilege, in my opinion, to have the voices and the wisdom of our fathers to lean on. It's people say, well, now that you're the lead pastor, what are you going to do different? I'm like, nothing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's right. And the applications change, but the principles don't.
That's right.
I've had the privilege of listening to you as God has brought you into the pulpit and you started to share the word. And so many of the principles of Dr. Tony Evans and the Kingdom Agenda and things that were really impactful in my young life as a Christian, I hear in your voice, which I should, but the application, it's different. It has something that is new and fresh and brings a word of encouragement to your generation.
That's right.
And so in some places people go, well, that's different. It's not different, it's just new.
That's exactly right. And that's the relationship between Moses and Joshua. That relationship it's the same game plan. God doesn't change his game plan, but he does have new applications. When Moses was leading the people through the wilderness, and there was a grace for that, but Joshua was going to have to pull out a sword. And there's a time for that. And so, but Moses did the monster work. Moses is carrying the tablets. Moses is doing the grind in the wilderness. And when Joshua gets the baton, he's right there at the Jordan. Boom. It's just time to get across with the next generation and still accomplish the same plan of taking the land. And so that's what we have to do. Is we have to balance well, but we still have to get across. There's a lot of people depending on us to take this baton and run full speed with what we've already been given. We had no excuse.
Correct.
Because you just had Moses as you just were
you had an example, but at the same time, I think in staying with Moses and Joshua as an application, Moses' ministry was not fulfilled in Moses' life. It was fulfilled in Joshua's.
That's right. That's right.
Moses' purpose was to get them to and established in the promised land.
Right.
And I see a lot of that work, happening in my life and in yours. God started something in one generation, he's going to fulfill it in the next generation.
That's right.
And it's our responsibility not only to fulfill it, but where I see Joshua having probably not done all that he was called to do is he didn't raise up somebody in that next generation, because the Bible says that whenever Joshua was old, the people stopped listening to God.
Here comes the generation. Yeah, exactly right.
And then they fell away and got into the season of the judges. But it's our responsibility to look at our children and those who are to come and say, listen, these are the principles, these are the truths, these are the foundational things that you cannot get away from, that you have to hold on to, that'll get you through every season of life.
Yeah, and that's legacy.
Absolutely.
That's legacy. And then we can't forget that, because we're going to be taking the baton, but we got to make sure that you pass it. You're another leg in the race.
Amen. When we come back, more from Jonathan Evans' message right here at Cornerstone Church. You're watching The Difference.
The last few years have brought unprecedented challenges for all of us. We have carried burdens we were never intended to carry.
Does your soul need rest? Are you carrying spiritual burdens that God never intended for you? Now is the time to take your challenges and lay them at the feet of Christ. Stop living in the past and let your dreams lead you down God's divine path.
To help you on your journey, we will send you our Pathway to Victory devotional for your support of any amount. For your generous gift of $200 or more, we will also send you our Pathway to Victory journal and a Revelations 21:5 scripture art that will encourage and inspire your walk.
Cast your cares on Him and see God's favor rain down on every corner of your life.
Send your gift today. Call the number on your screen or visit jhm.org/promise.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You may be seated. But I'm excited just to be here. I want to thank Pastor Matt. I want to thank Kendal. I want to thank all of Cornerstone Church just for having me out here. Our families are close, and we're just excited to serve one another whenever we have the opportunity to do it. I also have to thank my wife, Kanika. I always thank her publicly because if I'm here, it means she's at home with our 5 kids. So, yeah, I didn't say 2 or 3, 5. 13 to 3. Teenager to diapers. So she's handling that for me, and so, but it's fun. It's a blessing from the Lord. I want to read one verse as my theme verse for tonight, and then we're going to go from there. It's found in Exodus 1:25. And in Exodus 1:25, there is a scenario that's going down. Pharaoh has just put out an edict in the land. And that edict is putting some people in positions where they have to make some critical decisions in their life. And so I want to read this verse, and then I want to take off for a second. It's found in Exodus 1:22, and it reads this way. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who was born you ought to cast into the Nile, and every daughter you ought to keep alive. Then Pharaoh commanded all of his people, saying, every son I want you to take him and cast him into the Nile, and every daughter I want you to keep alive. Tonight I want to talk to you about surviving Pharaoh. I want to talk to you about surviving Pharaoh because there is a great enemy in the land at the time, and there's a great enemy in our land at this time. And he is coming to steal, kill, and destroy, and he has an edict out on your life. He has an edict out on your life, and he wants to take from you that which God has conceived in you. You see, he has a plan of action because Pharaoh is extremely evil and insecure. He's evil and insecure, and so what he wants to do is come to God's people who have the charge to replicate God's image, who have the charge to replicate who God is on earth as it is in heaven. And because he's evil and insecure, he wants to make sure that what you've been charged to do, purpose to do in your individual life and in your families and in your careers and wherever you go and whatever you do, he wants to make sure that you don't get around to working for God's kingdom because he wants you to stay enslaved to his kingdom. We don't fight it just against flesh and blood. We fight against the rulers, the principalities, the world forces of darkness, the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. We got to start understanding that if all you see is what you see, you do not see all there is to be seen. There is something behind the scenes at work. Pharaoh was trying to strip your marriage from you so you won't progress. He's trying to strip your kids. The waywardness that you're experiencing is not they just a bad kid. Pharaoh's hands is on them. He wants to strip that idea, that dream, that business that you've built, those things that you're trying to do. It's been conceived in you. You're excited about it. You've given birth to it. You're trying to nurse it and grow it, spend time with it. You're totally investing yourself in whatever that thing is, and it started out as a blessing. And now that blessing is turning into a burden. It's because Pharaoh has an edict out in the land. It's not just these things are just happening and things just kind of are getting bad. And, we think always the flesh is the problem, that this person is the problem, that this thing is the problem. And we totally discount the fact that Pharaoh has an edict. And here we are, he's evil and insecure. And at his first try in verse 11 and 12, he says, you know what? Let's afflict them with more labor. Let's give them more. Let's make life hard on them. And that attempt didn't work. It says when Pharaoh made life hard on the people of God, they multiplied even more.
So it was almost like the hardship that Pharaoh brought into the people of God was like an aphrodisiac to the people of God. They kept spreading that. So it didn't work out for Pharaoh in his first attempt. So he tried something else in Exodus chapter 1. I want you to pay attention to this. In Exodus chapter 1, verse 15, he tried something else. He said, "Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one who was named Shiphrah and the other who was named Puah. And he said, when you are helping the Hebrew women give birth, and you see them upon the birth stool, if it is a son, kill him." And let me put this in layman terms. He went to God's women, and he said to God's women, "I want you to go kill God's men." Oh, did you just catch that? Pharaoh went to God's women, and he said, "I know you have the experience to do something for me. I know that you have the power to do something for me. I know that you have the background to do something for me. And I want you to use your experience, your power, and your background to go take God's men out." That was his plan, is that he wanted to use God's women because he knew, like I know, that women have power. Watch this. They have the power to build a house. They also have the power to tear it down. Proverbs 14:1 says, "A wise woman builds her house, but a foolish one will tear it down with her own hands," which lets me know that women have the power to build things, and they also have the power to tear things down. So we have to be careful. Let me talk to my ladies for a second, because we have to be careful that the culture doesn't give you enough credit. God's word does. You've got power. Okay, let me explain something to you. The only reason you are in this church to continue to experience the ministry of Dr. Hagee is because you really have Diana Hagee's fingerprint all over you. The only reason you can experience Pastor Matt is because you have the fingerprint of Kendal all over you. There would not be any sermons about Moses if it was not for Shiphrah and Puah. They used their power to build things up. The only reason I know for a fact that people all over the world experienced the ministry of Dr. Tony Evans is because when things got hard, when there was an edict against Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, when Pharaoh tried to crash the house, Lois Evans said, "Absolutely not." I will not let Pharaoh whisper in my ear and use my experiences, my power, and my background to tear this situation down, tear this man down, tear this marriage down, tear these things down, because I have the power to do it, but I fear God more than I fear Pharaoh. That's what it says about these Hebrew women. They looked at Pharaoh, who was the most powerful man on the planet, and they looked at him and said, "No, we ain't doing that. I'm sorry, you got your plan, but we're not about to be a part of that plan, because we are kingdom builders. We're not kingdom destroyers." So I just wanted to do a little cliff note, just to let the ladies know what you have in your hands. God knows it, and Pharaoh knows it.
Come Alive 2022, April 29th through May 1st. Experience inspirational music, games, teachings, and authentic Texas hospitality featuring Pastor John and Diana Hagee, Pastor Matt and Kendal Hagee, best-selling author and international speaker John Bevere, Christian entrepreneurs the Benham Brothers, music by award-winning gospel singer CeCe Winans. This is an event you don't want to miss. For more information, call the number on your screen or visit jhm.org.
talking about family and the seasons that family goes through, the Evans family leading up to COVID, in COVID, and coming out of COVID, because I'm close from afar. I stay in touch and see the things that are happening in your life, and y'all walk through a very difficult season with one situation after another that just kind of seemed to compound.
That's right.
And it was one of those moments where, if I may be so bold to suggest, most people would have looked and said, "Where's God? Where's God in this heartache? Where's His faithfulness after this situation?" And here comes one right after the other, and in a very beautiful fashion, y'all took all of those moments and compiled them in a book called Divine Disruption. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I started. I think it was 2018. My dad lost his brother. Then I lost my cousin, Winter. And then my dad lost his sister, and then his brother-in-law, and then we found out my mom had terminal cancer. So we were and this was all 3 or 4 months apart.
Yeah.
And so we were just thinking, what is going on? To the point where we started feeling like, who's next? We started getting nervous.
Anxiety
We're just kind of looking around, having those conversations. And so it was very difficult to go through that season and then get to where we lost my mom was very hard because the whole world was praying. Like everybody's praying, all the churches. So we were just like, oh, we know God is going to come through. This is going to be the stage. He's going to do His glory. And so that was very hard for us. While we didn't lose faith, we were disappointed. And one of the things we talked about in Divine Disruptions is that disappointment in God. And that's okay. Sometimes you're going to be disappointed in what He allows to take place. But we wanted to still use this because we're faith-filled people and because we did not lose faith even though we went through something where a lot of people would. We wanted to make sure that we put something out to help people. We're not the only ones, and sometimes when you are going through something, you feel like you're by yourself, in this isolated place where it's only happening to you. And we wanted to make sure that people could be comforted with not only our testimony, but hopefully the Spirit of God through what we were able to put down on paper with what we've gone through. And so we just wanted to do ministry. We wanted to help people, and that's just who we are.
When you really get transparent about this is how we were feeling, and this is how we were hurting, and this is what God did in that moment, and here's how He comforted us, and here's how He's going to comfort you, it really gives people hope, which is something that I think the world is in a desperate need of right now.
Most definitely. I mean, I felt totally defeated.
Yeah.
I mean, totally defeated. I started moving into fear.
Because there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. It's totally out of your hands. So, and my dad is a fix-it guy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing he could fix. God just took it totally out of our hands. All the questions, the big question is why? Why is this? What did we do? All of these different things. But in that, when I got to my lowest point, is when God spoke to me the clearest. And that's when I was that's the only reason I had the strength to preach at my mom's funeral, the eulogy, is because He said, you're feeling defeated, but I need you to understand there's a difference between what you feel and what the truth is. You have the victory. You just feel defeated. And people have to understand that when you go through those things, you feel defeated, but you're not defeated. There's a difference between the truth and what you feel based on what you're going through. And what we had to learn to do is it's almost a spiritual pick yourself up by your bootstraps because you don't feel like doing it.
No.
Correct.
But I had to put my heart on a leash and make it follow the truth until it catches up.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't go with what I feel. I got to go with the truth and let God do His work until the feelings catch up. Heart is the most deceitful of all and desperately sick. Who can understand it? So I can't follow that. So it was a hard thing to do because of how you feel. Feelings are real.
Yeah.
But to go with the truth is what we talked about in this book, and we wanted people to see the truth through the fog of emotions that are also, real. But there's also, it's okay to stop and grieve.
You have to.
And we wanted people to know that we stopped and grieve, and we still do it to this day. Just stop and grieve. Take time, Sabbath, rest. You know what I mean? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. And as empty as we were at that time, after loss after loss after loss, and then getting back up and people seeing a book and people seeing my dad preaching and me preaching and all that, it's kind of like, oh my God, people, it's overwhelming. How do they just they have all these and they just keep, well, no.
Yeah.
What you didn't see behind the scenes is all the tears, us telling each other, no, you're not taking any engagement, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're going to sit here as a family, we're going to grieve, we're going to talk through it, we're going to have conversations, we're going to ask each other how we feel and go. So we had a lot of time for that, and we still make time for that.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that people still know that what you see maybe on TV or on a stage and books that come out, yes, that's us producing from pain, because you can produce a lot from pain, but at the same time, we also sat in our pain. We also took the time, and grieving is okay. A lot of people beat themselves up.
Yeah.
I'm grieving. I'm still grieving. Why am I still having these emotional issues? Because you just lost someone.
Yeah.
Because you just lost.
You went through a pain.
Because you went through a hurt. Pain, and that's okay. That's a part of the process of what God is going to do in you and through you.
Well, grieving seasons can be growing seasons.
That's right.
And a lot of times people don't want to put those two things together. But even David in the Psalms, he professes and tells people it was good that I was afflicted. Because there are things that I learned about God in that affliction that I otherwise would not have known. I think it's important for people who are listening to understand that when you have a friend or a loved one who's going through something, give them time to grieve.
Yes, sir. And we have to learn how to receive, Yeah,
absolutely.
Pastors aren't really, we're not really the best at, we give, and we have the heart to do it. We want to do it. When we get requests, we're like, yes, I'm all in, all those types of things. But nobody sees the other side of it when you know what I mean? And we'll push past that. Ex-football player, you push yourself, you have the mindset to keep going. Meanwhile, your kids aren't getting what they need from you. You're emotionally absent. Your wife is not getting what she needs from you. You're not doing what you need to do in the home for your primary ministry to make sure you're raising disciples. If you raise disciples here, if everybody did that in their families, it wouldn't.
That's good. Yeah.
So, but the inability to receive, to make sure you have give and take, and you're able to do it powerfully, and you're able to do it with equity. It takes some receiving, and we have to be okay with that.
Kendal and I want to thank our guest, Jonathan Evans, for being here with us on The Difference today. I pray that you were encouraged as you had the opportunity to hear about the exciting things that God is doing through his life and ministry. I want you to know that the God that we serve, he's a God who can do all things, and anything that you need today, he's able to meet that need. Just call upon him, and he'll show you great and mighty things that you know not. I look forward to having the opportunity to see you again right here on The Difference.